data from like 10 different sources and put it on your website and create the microsite on the go. Yeah, but to start anything, like not XM Cloud components, but to start anything, you need to ask yourself what it is. That's where it starts, right? So we'll keep it a basic and then we'll go in detail. So what is a component? So why I'm saying what is a component? Because to understand XM Cloud components, we need to understand what is a component actually. So component is something, which is a structure. So that means it has a specific inline elements, block elements, maybe a paragraph tag, right? CTA or maybe images. Then it has some style. So maybe you make it bold, maybe you make it italic, you throw some colors to it. And then what is missing is the data inside it. So your structure, your style, and then you put some data into it, then your component is called a component. That's what the normal component in the web world is for us developer and for others. Now, what is XM Cloud components? Now, XM Cloud components and how it differs from the normal components. XM Cloud components is a web component. Now, this is a pretty, not the new tech, like new buzzword. Web components are pretty older, but it is a concept on its own. Web components are something which has their own custom HTML wrappers. So that means just like the paragraph tag or anchor tab, you can create your own custom wrappers, and they are encapsulated on their own word. So that means your particular component which has the custom tags, which is isolated from the outer side DOM. The DOM means your document. The main page document, they are isolated. So they have their attributes, they do their own thing. That's what the web components are. And XM Cloud components are web components. And last but not the least, the most important, they are front-end as a service offering. So that means you can create without writing any code, low code, no code. You can create a world-class pixel perfect component through the canvas without writing a code. And that's where the Sidecore is going, to create the world-class editor for content authors and people like us.
So yeah, as my friend D said that yeah, it is a web component. It has its own DOM. It has its own style. So it has its own canvas where you can do wonders. So these are the following main advantages and offerings that it has. The first one is low code, no code. Now from yesterday in many slides you have seen this word low code, no code. So it is very self-explanatory, and we will also see that in the demo that how seamlessly we can create the components fundamentally. But what they want to say is there is no need to build, compile and deploy a component that we traditionally do with the use of XM Cloud components. Yes, you can have your own style libraries, you can create your own themes, and then you can apply it on the components data source. So you can not only have your own static data source, but you can also have the data flowing from the multiple data sources, which is really cool. And this is the main offering that the XM Cloud component has, which makes it more special. And finally, our marketing people would be loving it because they just need to drag and drop the components on the page, and that's it. So in all, we can say that with XM Cloud components, our content authors, our designers, our marketing people will be working together in parallel just to ensure that they can speed up the process of creating functional UI components.
Yep. And that's what we saw yesterday in Peter's keynote, where XM Cloud or any development work is a teamwork. Why? Because you, as a developer, you do some technical configuration, you give them to a marketing team, and as AB mentioned, your marketing team has all the flexibility, they have all the brand styling, they don't need to do anything, everything happens from the user interface itself, and that's why it becomes a team game.
Yeah. So before going further, we just want to tell you guys or show you them like why it is important to talk about this low code development approach. Like this is what Gartner has to say, and they say that the worldwide the low code development approaches market will be growing 20% in 2020, and that is why it is very important to talk about this XM Cloud components offering, because they are going on the same path. We have few stats for this LCAPs, and you can see the revenue year by year is just growing up.
Yeah. So LCAM means low code application platforms. So that's what it shows. It's growing 25% every year. Now let's talk a little bit, about how component XM Cloud Components does what it does, why it is so powerful, what it does behind the scene. So as a developer community, or maybe as a technical people, right, like we always want to know what is working behind the scene, what is underneath the skin, how it works. So that's what we also have tried to cover here. So first of all, it uses Azure Blob for the storage. So XM Cloud Components have their own platform where things are stored. Uh, it has its own delivery channels. So we'll see in the next slide in detail. But XM Cloud Components is so seamlessly integrated into XM Cloud app that you don't feel the difference that it's a different app. It was very surprising for both of us as well that it has its own delivery channel. Your XM Cloud delivery happens separately, and your XM Cloud Component delivery happens separately. They are totally isolated. And then whatever do in the canvas that we'll see in the demo. So there is a canvas. Canvas means it opens a world for you to do a lot of things. So when you do anything assembling on the canvas, it happens on the server side. And when you actually put those components, when you're done, you put those on the page, and when you request the page and the component is referenced, at that time everything is on the client side. There is no server side, but it all happens on the client side. So that's what the insight we wanted to give. That's how it works. Now, little bit, because as a developer, we always want to know what is underneath the skin. So this is what it is. So this is actually live snapshot or the maybe view source of one of the component XM Cloud components which we configured. So as you see, it actually has the custom HTML tag, right? So FeaaS component is the tag that gets created, and everything is kind of encapsulated inside it for that particular component. Data, style guide, reference, ID, everything is referenced there, and from there it kind of does what it does. This is how it works. And down below, what you see is the class FeaaS component extend HTML element. We are not going to write anything this in our lifetime. This is just to show that how it works behind the scene. You are not going to write anything like this. It's all low code, no code. You're not going to write it. Now, this is what I was talking about in previous slide, where it was very surprising that XM Cloud and XM Cloud Components has different delivery channels. So on top you see XM Cloud delivers classical headless fashion delivery, where they have own edge network, they have Versal app, they have CDN. Then it delivers your app, maybe Pages app, right? So it has its own delivery. And over here you see the XM Cloud Components. It also has its own delivery channel. So that means your pages, when you do something on pages, that is getting delivered separately than your XM Cloud. So your components on the page are coming from a different delivery channel, not on XM Cloud. Now let's get little closer to the demo and get familiar with what we have to show you. As we talked, CSD, component styles and data source. This is the basic building block of component and XM Cloud component as well. Now this is the component. This is the screenshot of the canvas that you see. So basically, what it is what you see, what you get editor. It's a world-class editor they are trying to create, and this is what you see here. So what happens is, here you see this is the sample that we have tried to create. In detail we'll show in the demo. But this is the canvas where you put different elements or things on the canvas, and then you style it, then you use it. Then on top you have the different breakpoints. So if you're larger desktop, if you're mobile, if you can configure those. And then you have different options here saying, hey, themes, I want my brand theme to be configured, apply to the components. All of those things can be configured from here. Then there is a workflow. So what is the workflow is that a typical workflow for XM Cloud component is, once you create or edit any component in the canvas. So now when you are in canvas, by default, it is a draft mode. So that means it is only specific to that canvas and not exposed anywhere. Now, when you create the component, and then when you feel that now it looks good on the canvas, and then I want to preview that, right? Before publishing, I want to preview that. So what happens is that once you are fine and then you stage it. So this is the button here. So this is the stage, restage, and publish different status that you see. So when you stage that, what happens is that that component is now previewable on your pages. Now, what is the difference between this draft and the stage? So that means when you're using your Pages app, if your component is only in draft mode and not staged, you won't be able to drag and drop onto the page. And then you'll figure out that, oh, I have not staged it, and you'll stage, and then you'll be able to drag and drop. So that is the difference. Once you're good, your preview site looks good, your component looks good, then what you do is you publish it and then make it live, and then cycle repeats itself. So when consider that after going live, you want to make some change. When you edit, again it goes to edit mode, draft mode, and then cycle repeats itself. That's how it works.
So yeah, let us talk about styles now. So style library is nothing but it is a design system that will ensure that visual consistency is maintained between your components. So the designers who are sitting here, we just call it as a style guide of our component, right? It is basically divided into four things. The first one is the basic primitive, where we define our fonts that will eventually form our typographies. We define our color palettes. We define few graphics, breakpoints. In breakpoints, there are lot of breakpoints that are already available, so we can use them also. Defining this first one is nothing but we are defining the building block for our component. The second one is the GUI, that is the style rules. So they do extend the design primitives, and we can apply those rules on the elements in our component. The first one is the typography, where we are defining that what kind of font type would be having what kind of font size. Along with that, we can also define that whether it should be in caps or it should be in lowercase by default. In decorations, what we do is we define what kind of decorations our component would be have, like it would have rounded edges or not, it what kind of different borders it should have, what kind of different shapes it would have. In fields, what we do is we using the colors that we have defined, we would be adding more effects to those colors. Like we can control the opacity of it, we can apply the different gradients effect to it, and then finally comes the spacing, self-explanatory, padding, margin can be defined here. Then comes the elements. The first one is the text element. Now in text element, we have our paras and our heading text, where we will be defining that what kind of typography should be applied to my heading text and what kind of font color it should have. Then comes the inline elements, where we have button, badges, we have the links there. So in buttons, we are going to define that what kind of decoration, like what kind of shape my button would be having, what kind of fill color should be applied to them. And finally comes the block elements, where we have our section, where we have our cards, containers, and here we are defining that if I am having a card, then what kind of decoration, that shape that card would have, what kind of feel that we have. So once you can see that it is a top-down approach, and finally comes the themes, where we are combining all the things that we have defined so far under the elements, and then you can just directly apply it to the component. We will see it in the demo so that you guys get a clear idea, but that's all about the style section.
Cool. So we saw components, we saw style. Now, last but not the least is the data source, and I think the most important one. So XM Cloud Components, when we talk about XM Cloud Components data sources, currently it offers this three particular types of data source that you can configure inside them. Now, here, if you see the static JSON option, right? So we have the paste JSON option. So that means a use case can be consider your website which is behind the firewall and it is not able to ping some service continuously get the data, right? In that case, you get the JSON, you put it here, and then on the right hand side, it will give you all the schema of your particular JSON, and then you will be able to map it without any code. You'll be able to map it, your source property, to your components. So saying that, hey, my first name should go to the label, my last name should go to this paragraph, and then you're done. And component will be drawing the data from that particular data sources. The second option is dynamic JSON from any API. That means if you're REST API, right? If you're any API which exposes JSON to you, what you can do is you can just paste that particular URL and do a fetch. It will do the same. It will give you the schema, and then again the process takes place the same way, where you map the fields. Then the third one is the GraphQL endpoint. GraphQL endpoint is people who are already working in GraphQL. That means if you have a content hub one, if you have content hub, right, or whatnot, XM Cloud websites, which is exposing your data to experience age. Now, using which you can create absolutely dynamic components without writing any code, or it's just the technical configuration that you do of GraphQL, and then your component will always read data dynamically. You don't need to change anything. If your source changes, your component also updates itself. So it's pretty powerful offering. Now, I think there are only 2 slides, and then we'll jump into the demo. Limitations. We have talked a lot of good things about XM Cloud Components so far, but I think it is also important for us to know what are the limitations, right? What should be aware before using it. First one is not the limitation actually, but this is what it is. So that means it is in early access stage, because XM Cloud team is constantly working and deploying almost daily on XM Cloud, and it could be possible that what you see in the demo might change tomorrow or maybe day after tomorrow, and it is something else. So that's what you should be aware, because we also, when working, things change in 3 days, and we need to figure out, what is where, things like that. Only one-time fetch for JSON is available. That means the second option which I show, that fetch from JSON API. Currently, it is only able to fetch when you click on the fetch button. It is not able to update itself. So basically, it is the same option as the first option, which is a static JSON. They are working on it to make it dynamic. So that is currently not working. Then component render on the client side, as I also mentioned earlier, that whatever you do on the server side, on the canvas, when you make it live, everything is on client side. There is nothing happens on the server side. And yeah, available for only JSS greater than this version. So if you have the version lesser than that Sitecore CLI version in your head app, the npm package that we use, maybe your XM Cloud components might not work. You will need to upgrade to that particular version, and then XM Cloud app will work.
So yeah, whenever there are limitations in our developers world, we always have roadmap to overcome them, right? So for this, what we did is we did our own research, and then we also connected with FeaaS Sitecore folks to double check it. So this is what they are going to be available in the coming future. The first one is the developer will be able to bring their own components with the React SDK that is going to be launched for XM Cloud Components explicitly. With this, they will be able to do the server side rendering along with the client side rendering that is already available. There will be support for custom fonts also, which is currently only supported by Google Fonts.
Cool. So now I think for the most exciting part, and less yawning probably, that's the demo. So this is my components tab, and I'm in XM Cloud. So I'll just refresh this. Maybe I'll also refresh this guy. So we saw in the slide, right, the first 3 tabs: component, styles, and data source. So here in components tab, you see add collection button. Add collection is nothing but a group of components, logical grouping of the component, like a folder and files. So if you have banner, different types of banner, vertical, horizontal, you can group them, put it in the banner group, and then use it. For simplicity, we have just used SUGCON India 2023, and we have clubbed all the components that we want to use into that particular collection. So that's about collection. Now, this is the add component dialog button. By doing this, what it does is it starts giving you the configuration. I'll say SUGCON simple demo, and I'll just avoid the description, but you can define what it is, what this component does. At this point also, you'll be able to say, hey, I want to move it to a different collection. But what I'll do is I want to use the same collection. Now component is added, and you see that it is already allowing me to start using the canvas. And this is where I was saying that it opens a world for you. This canvas is capable of doing a lot of stuff from the one screen. For the use case, what we will do is we will use the SUGCON site. So what we will do is we will create a SUGCON, these components, and we'll show you multiple different ways of doing the things just to set the context so you can relate to the things and the use cases. So we'll also see that how fast you can create microsites in like within of minutes or maybe couple of spending couple of minutes and create your microsites and make it live. Now this is the component, and consider that you don't have any developer. It's midnight. You have some scenario and you want to get something up, some announcement, something up. Now this is the banner component. I'll take the example of. So as I said, it has some props. So it has a title, it has subtitle, it has description, and it has CTA. And one more thing is that it has this particular box or a div or a container or a block element which has some opacity to it. It is opaque, it is transparent. And then I have this image right in the background. So those are the properties, and then how to make the same component in XM Cloud components, just to make you aware that how use case can be. And here if I go on my component builder, so what I will do is I'll say, hey, add an element. I want to add this card because it's a block element. I'm trying to create that div container. I'll say, hey, add it here. Now this is by default in the 6-column container. The flexibility is you can just drag and drop. I want to have some bigger width to that. Now this is the quick and fast, and I won't say dirty, but quick and fast way to achieve things. So maybe what I'll do is, and also to show, there are many ways of looking and working at things in the new world. I'll just copy because it also shows the power of XM Cloud Components, how it adopts the style and spacing and margin by itself. You see, it is already starting looking great, right? If you create this normally, it won't look that good. Now what I have is I also have the button. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, add a button, maybe down here at the end of my card. I have the button, right? And you can set the link to whatever the link that which is pointing on a SUGCON side. I'm just keeping that, but there are a lot of attributes you can just configure. Now one more thing, I want the image. So for the sake of the demo purpose, what I will do is I'll just copy the same image, and I will say, hey, I don't want to put that image in this card, but I want to put that in the section, which is a background part, container of it. And I'll say, this is not my mapped image, it's not my dynamic, but it is just, can you put it static image and show me? There it is. So powerful. So within fraction of a second, you can see it has started coming to life, right? Now, as I talked about, there are workflows. So now if I don't stage this particular guy, I won't be able to preview that, and I won't be able to drag and drop onto my pages to see how it looks actually on the website. So I'll just stage this for now. And then if I go to this app, and then if I go to this component, probably I might need to refresh because it needs to get the new component in the list. And then it will show me all the collection that I have. If you remember, there were collection group. So I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in this, but I'm interested in this particular SUGCON C-point demo that we created. But before that I do, what I will do is I'll just create a simple page here so that I can show you that one component means a component. Multiple component, if you put on the page, it becomes a web page. And then when you create a multiple web page like that, it becomes your microsite, right? So this is a page I'll create. I'll say SUGCON. Yeah, my blank page is ready for me to drag and drop the components. I'll go to components, and this is the component which I just created. I'll just drag and drop. It's on the page now. So I will assemble a couple of more components and then preview it, and then you will see how fast your web page is created. But for now, for this component, I'll just move to this use case, and then I'll show you the dynamic use case. Yeah, before I do that, one more thing I want to show is that a beautiful thing, I think our front-end team, whoever is working in front-end will love that. You can also get the embed code. Oops. So you can get the embed code, copy that, use it in your app. As simple as that. The same component without any code will be available in your other front-end head apps as well. Like, you know, we are embedding a video or iframe or something like that. I think it's a very powerful stuff. Now, I will move to another use case where I have my site maybe on a content hub or maybe on XM Cloud, but I have an experience age. So what I want to do is I have my blog website. So this is my blog website. Well, it's not pretty, but it's still a blog website for this demo. So this is my website hosted on XM Cloud, right? So this is my XM Cloud instance. And what I'm doing is that this is my blog where I compose my blogs. What I want to do is I want to have these blogs because I want to draft it here, but I want to use it many places. So I'm drafting it here and I want to use the same blogs on my new site, on my new pages, on my new XM Cloud component app. So what I will do is I will go to this particular website, which is on my XM Cloud. This is a third website. And then what I'm doing is I'm just changing the title. Why I'm changing the title is and publish it so that when I assemble the XM Cloud component and when I map it to my data source, you will actually see that whatever I updated here will already reflect that. And that's the power. So I'll say SUGCON demo. It always happens like this, right? When you click, it logs in. Yeah, but that's fine. I'm here. SUGCON demo. And I'll just publish it. And I'll publish it to Experience Editor. Experience Age, my bad. So you see I'm sending it to Age as a publish, and then I'll let it do what it does because now it will publish and then eventually it will be available. So I'm now going into the Builder app again. Now, before creating a component, you need a data source, right? Because now we are going to create a dynamic data source. So first I will create a data source. So what I will do is I'll say, hey, add a data source. Now, this is a familiar screen you saw on the PPT. So it has a JSON, it has a fetch from API, and it has a fetch from GraphQL. Fetch from JSON, we'll see we have created one more component from the static JSON for our speakers grid. Live SUGCON speakers are being driven from that. But right now I'm interested in fetch from GraphQL. So I will go there, and it has a couple of options which I want to configure. So first I'll give a name saying SUGCON featured blogs, and then now to retrieve the data, GraphQL has Experience has public endpoint, right? Everybody knows. Those who have worked with Experience Age, how to query it, it has its public endpoint. So what I will do is I will go to my GraphQL playground, and the people who are familiar with this screen knows that this is the playground where you test your queries. So what I've done is I already have a query, and then I already have a GraphQL like public endpoint. This URL is same worldwide. Every client will have the same URL if they are using the experience. That's the power. That's the customer experience that you get, right? And it has a CDN and your data is replicated, but based on the token, which is different from client to client, it will fetch the data. So I have tested it, and I'm very comfortable with this schema because I want to read the feature blogs. That's what I want to do, and I have prepared this. So what I will do is I'll just do a configuration. So I'll say copy and use this particular thing in this URL. Then it is a query. So that means I will use the query because this is what I tested, right? I'll say put a query here, and then variables. So if you have some query variables like which I'm using, so this is what I'm using, query variables. So I'll say, hey, put it here. Same variable, you can paste it here. Now, one more thing I want to configure is the GraphQL token, because without token it will not work and I'll be unauthorized to access my endpoint. from where I can get the token. So token is here. I'll say this is my token. I'll just copy that. And I will say XGQL token. This is universal. This is how it works. It's not XM Cloud specific, but it's GraphQL specific, the syntax. Now, don't worry if you don't see the option of GraphQL in the header. If you just put a tab, it will automatically add it to the header. I'll just paste it, and then I'll say, yeah, remove this one. Yeah, this is good. Now, if I fetch, if everything goes well, it should give me a dynamic schema, and that's what it is. So it gave me dynamic schema of the endpoint. This is the same as what I was seeing here, right? So I'm pretty comfortable that now I can actually go to my component and map my thing. So what I will be doing is that I'll map this particular thing to my container, and then what I'll say is that, hey, display my blog title on this paragraph, display my blog description in this particular container, and then it will start driving the data dynamically. So I'm good here. What I'll do is I'll just save, because I'm good with the data source configured fine, good, and it's saved. Now it is time to go to components. Now this time around, what I will do is I will create the dynamic component. So I will say SUGCON featured logs featured blocks, right? Save. I can start editing the same fashion. I'm into canvas. Now you see, very first use case was a quick, fast way of doing things. Now we are actually doing the thing, which everybody would be interested in. So I will say add an element. Now it is up to you, because how you want to display things, it's in your head. You have the option. You want column, you want container, you want this, you want that. You can use whatever you want, and you can map it to the data source. It will behave like that. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, again add a card. Now card means container, div. That's it. Because I'm using block element, that's why it's called card, but it's a div behind the scene. Yeah, I want to have a max width for my blog, and then what I want to do is I want to have this blog container and show 3 blogs at a time. So it's a feature blog. Topmost 3 blogs I want to show here. I'll say add one more card inside that. I'll say add a card, and then here I will say, hey, layout split into the 3 columns. So that means whatever you put inside this card, it should be span in 3 columns, 33, 33, 33. Cool. Now, what I will do is I will add another card inside it. Card is just a div. So, and as you see, instead of spanning it to the full width, now it is understood that now whatever the element comes into the parent, it should be 33% of width, and then the repetition will happen depending on the data source. So what I want to do here is that I will add an element saying, hey, paragraph, before that, what I'll need to do is I'll need to map it to my data source. Now this is my parent. Over there, I will say, hey, this is my parent node under which all the blocks you show it. So I'll map this here, and I'll say map. Now we created a SUGCON featured blogs component data source, and that's what it is. So the moment I select, it repeated itself, because that GraphQL query is returning only three results, top 3 results. It knew it, and it only showed 3 boxes. Pretty intelligent. Now I'll say maybe add a heading, because I want to show the title inside my card, and I'll say, hey, instead of this text, show me the actual text of my blog. And you see the magic here. I will say title. It started showing me the live titles, of my Expense editor, Expense age, where where it is. Now I will say paragraph. Add a paragraph, and then I'll say, hey, map it to my field called intro text. Intro text is like highlights of my blog. So you see it already is showing you the data from the live endpoint. Now I will stage this. And what I'll do is I'll go to the builder. Yeah, I'll go to the pages app and then I'll just refresh so that I can get that particular component listed in my tab. Yeah, so this is my page, right? This is the page we created. We have one component. And then what I'll do is I'll go to component tab. I'll again call it this collection. And here is my blog, right? So I'll just drag and drop this particular guy here. And then you see, it already has the data here. So that's where, it happens dynamically. Stuff, static and dynamic, both use cases are covered. And then what I will, for the sake of showing you other stuff, this SUGCON website, right? We created this one, and then it also has this 50-50 components like this. So you can also have variants. So if you want to have an image on the left and text on the right, stuff like those, very quickly how you can do. So I already have the components for that available with me. So what I will do is I will just assemble them. So here it is. This is the component I'm interested in. This is my 50-50. And then I will drag and drop the same component here because I have the variant for that. Now the moment I say, hey, I want a different variant for this guy. So I want image on the left and text on the right. So the moment I click that, it adopted and also changed the data store as for that. Now if I just preview that site completely in the browser, you see it has already started, looking like the original SUGCON site that we have, right? And then you see all the things that configured are in front of your eyes in the demo. You created a microsite in a couple of minutes. So that's what about the components. Now one thing is still remains, that is, because they are not styled as per my brand, because my brand is SUGCON and I want a red and white theme for that. Now that's what AB will show, that how to style them, depending on your company's brand. AB.
So yeah, we have seen the components, we have seen the power of data sources. Now let us quickly have a look on how the style section is working, how the themes are working. So I would quickly refresh this so that we have our new component that we created. So this is the component that we have created. Now if you see, there is a themes option here. So if I click here, so yeah, before going into that, what I have done is I have already created a theme for the sake of time, and then I will explain that how the theme can be created. So first of all, let us apply it on our component. So this is what the look and feel is required. I go to the builders option, I go to the themes option, and then I will be able to see the different themes that we have already created. So I am going to apply this theme, and you can see that it is already now it is 90% matching to what our requirement is. Yes, the fonts thing is not still matching, because that I've already covered and said that the support for custom fonts will be there. Currently only Google fonts are there. So now if I restage it and if I go to the preview page, you will be able to see that the components is already matching to our requirement, right? So this is the power of how we can just create a theme. Now let us see and have a look, like what are the steps to be followed, like what are the things that should be kept in mind while creating this. So if I again go to my component, what do I have? I have a para, I have a heading, again a para, a button, there is a card with a translution effect. So for that, what we will be doing is, like, we have already seen this in the slides, but we will follow the same thing. Like, we will be first defining the fonts that would be required for our component. Then after, we will be defining the color, different color palette. So for now, I am taking the with reference to our component that we have built. I am only explaining that part. So you can see that I have added the different colors that would be required for my component. For this component that we have taken in example, we do not need any graphics or breakpoint. Then I jump on to the type of graphics. So as I said, that we have the para, we have our heading. So you can see that we have defined this, that like SUGCON component para. In that, we have selected the required fonts that we want. As I said, that we can also control the sizing of it. We can tell that whether it should be in uppercase, lowercase by default. Then after, we will be defining the decorations for our component. So whatever that I am currently explaining is, I am explaining with the reference of this component only, but the same thing can be applied to multiple components also. So for my component, you can see that I have created a SUGCON button style, where I have so my button style does not require any rounded order, or it does not require any kind of shape. So I have not selected it, but just wanted to show you guys, like, this is where you are going to manage the different shapes of it. You can add the border, you can add the drop shadow. Then comes the fields, like, for our component, we have this translucent effect. So I have created a fill. You can see I have created a SUGCON card fill, where we have controlled the opacity. So the color that we have defined in this section are appearing here, and we have controlled the opacity of it to add the translucent effect. Along with that, there are options to add the gradient effects and other things also, which is for now, for this component, is not required. The same thing I have done for the SUGCON button card also. Then comes the text element. Like, as I said, in our component, we have our para, our heading. So you can see that I have created a SUGCON para. So as we know that everything should be collected, like, we should create a collection, and we should keep the things in that collection, so that it is very easy to identify that where are the things related to a specific element. So if I go to the SUGCON para, you can see that the typography that we have defined here is already available, and out of it, I have selected the SUGCON component para, which we just saw in the typography section. Then comes our inline elements, that is the button that I have in my component. So if I go there, as I said, we can select the typography, the SUGCON small button typography that we have defined here. Along with that, I will be mentioning the fill color. So I have selected the SUGCON card button fill that I have created. And then finally our block element comes, where we have defined the SUGCON card, where we have selected the fill color, that is the translucent fill color that we have already created in this fill section. So now, as we have defined the basic primitive, we have defined the rules that should be applied to a text element. We have already defined, like, what should be applied to the text element. Now finally comes the themes section. In the themes section, you can see that I have created a SUGCON theme, and in that, we have defined this card element. In card element, we have selected the SUGCON card that we have defined in the block element. So all the options that have been mentioned in the SUGCON card, like what kind of fill color it should have, what kind of decoration it should have, what kind of spacing, so it would be by default available. If there is more than one option provided or selected when you are defining this SUGCON card in the block elements, those options would be available in the drop down. But for my example, like, for the example that we have taken, it is just a simple SUGCON card fill color, so it is automatically selected, and the drop down is disabled. So yeah, That is how a theme has to be constructed, and then you can have that theme in the components section, and then you can apply it. So this is all about the theme. So I would like to show you one more component that we have already created. So here you can see we have created the speakers component. So this component is fetching the data from the live sessionize API, listing all the speakers that are going to present in SUGCON
This is
2023.
just a coincidence that AB is first because his name is Akshay.
Alphabetical
this is actually
order.
live feed, yeah.
So let me just show you the how it looks on our previous site. So I'm not going into deep of this because of the sake of time. So this is how it is looking. I have styled it somewhat, but not. It's just an example to show you guys like what power do we have, like what power the UX designer content authors will be having with no code actually written. So that's it from the demo part.
Yeah, and you see, we have the same speaker grid here. So this is the live site, and we use the sessionize API, get the list in the JSON and showed it. So I think pretty cool. I believe so you see, we created like in this demo in front of you, we already created 2 pages, like microsite in fraction of seconds. So that's the proud, ladies and gentlemen. That's it from our side. Yeah, with this, like we would like to end our session with this beautiful thought. Like if you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path as well. So we hope that it did light a lamp for you as well, for you learn something new. Thank you.
So do we have any questions?
Yeah. You need it will be your you don't need rendering host because that is being served from somewhere else. Your pay, so that's why if you create your own React component, you need the rendering host. But for XM Cloud components, it is just like pages. You integrate that, and that's being served from. So if you see this, let me show you one thing. So if I show this is bit technical for the people who are interested in. So if I hit a refresh, right? And if I see one of the components, right? If I see this for instance, if you see this, it is coming from blob, Azure blob. Now, if I open a new tab, you see. So that's what it is. It is being served from Azure blob currently. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 questions. First is there any linkage or any dependency between components? Like if I want to hide your component based on the different components, so can we do that?
You can do personalization, page layer personalization, where but you cannot do like because it's all client side, right?
Right.
You cannot do like if my components are like this, then do something else in that component.
Yes.
Those are isolated from each other because they are having their own wrapper. They don't know each other.
So there's no as such any implementation as of now.
There is no, but yeah, there is a roadmap
Right.
coming,
Okay,
which
okay.
is so you can bring your own code or bring your own React app. So they are working on server side renderings. So you can
Okay.
write server side rendering inside the canvas, and then you will be able to all this have a context. Know who the other components are, stuff like those.
So second question on the theming. So like usually the Arabic languages. So those are the main issues we are facing. So like if I have like 100 of languages, and so I have to create 100 of themes for that, or there's any way we can create variants of button and just variants of buttons based on the languages.
So the themes is not the theme of your site, right? This theme is the theme of your component.
Yeah, so that's what like if I have 2 languages, Hindi and English and Arabic. So Arabic the text are from the left. So like I have to create 2 different themes or 2 different how I can achieve this.
So it depends. I think if I were you, maybe I'll create 2 themes. maybe I can use the same theme and then update the other theme, and then because if themes are on component level, you can override the themes as well from the inline styling as well. So for one component, I will use that theme, and for other component, I will use the different theme. But generally, in the best practice scenario, there should be only one theme, and then your configuration of the inline elements, button, and all the building blocks should be different from elements to elements.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
So couple of questions I have. One thing is like as a like my team. Hello.
Yeah, because speakers are on that side.
So for the developers, right? So the team will be working on the SaaS product itself, or in their Docker instance, they will be able to work on the component library.
Yeah. So this Pages app you can open in your Docker, like in your local instance as well, right?
Yeah.
And then this being served from Azure Blob, separate delivery channel.
So you have to create there. You have to create in your SaaS product, or you can work on your component library within the Docker instance.
You
So-
can, yeah, go ahead.
For XM Cloud components, you cannot work from the Docker instance because, as we said, that it is completely driven from Azure Blob, right? So if you want it to be visible somewhere else, you already have that embedded code thing that we saw. But you cannot directly work on in your Docker instance with the XM Cloud components. You have to come to the XM Cloud components page, and that is where you
So
will.
now my local instance will never have that, right?
Yep.
So
For the Docker instance, you would be having the pages,
Pages
as you said, or the custom component, like the server side components that you would be already creating, but not the XM Cloud components. So that
Okay.
So the
that is
assembling,
what they have for now. I mean, we don't know the
correct.
future. Like they may introduce that also in your Docker.
So let's say for one client you have created some 50 components, right? And now other client is coming, they are having the same component, right? So
Can you
how
speak?
so let's say you have one client, you have created some 50 components for the client. Now if you want to, you reuse the components to the other client, how you can do that?
Yeah. So XM Cloud component is something that will be available for all your sites that you are in your XM
But it's a different portal altogether, different client, different XM license.
No, then you have to create the same
Recreate
component
the
there.
same
also.
work.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
But for now, like we don't know, right? They may be bringing something where you can actually copy that XML whole component to the other client also.
So last question is like how comfortable are you to use in a real project this feature now? Is it
Sorry?
recommended to use in the real project now, or still the team is working and we have to wait for some time to
No,
use?
it is not recommended to use now because it is in, if you see, it is still says the early access for us. So that means it is bound to change.
Yeah, documentation is also not there.
Yeah. So it is in early access.
Okay.
So they are keep on updating the documentation. So when we were actually creating this PowerPoint slides, yeah. So when before 3-4 days we saw that the bring your own component is already there in the documentation that you can create the server side rendering and you can use it.
One thing, right? So this graph you have used. So you have given the headers, tokens, and header.
Hmm.
But you are going to have different environments.
Yeah.
There will be very collection.
Correct.
So how that is going to change for the environment? You have already created a component.
Ah.
You want to fetch the data from the content hub,
Yeah.
Right. From the content hub, now you have given the content hub dev environment
Yeah.
information, and you have fetched the data. You are showing it. But now you are moving to one another environment. So how you are going to change that component?
Components, like when you use a component, right? It is driving the data from third-party apps.
Correct.
Right? So now either you use GraphQL endpoint that will be always live. So maybe and a GraphQL endpoint will be always for your production. So that means whatever you're doing, you're pointing it to your production experience edge.
No, but the third party is also having three environments, right? Dev, QA. You will map your dev to dev, QA to QA, and production to production, right?
So that is the environment you're talking about, right? But so the component that you have, its structure and everything will remain same. Now, if you want to test it, what you will do is, because I cannot point to a product like dev GraphQL or preview API, I cannot point it because it's on CM. So what you do is, so for that you can use preview API. So your XMC CM, then you know the preview URL, right? Which is not experience age, but it is coming from your content management data. That's what you can use. And when you publish, you want to see that, then you can point it to the production. But there is no different configuration that you can do. That this is for dev, this is for CM. Yeah.
How do we deploy
Yeah, that's I think unknown for me as well. So I won't be able to answer that. Yeah, it's nowhere available currently.
No,
No, no,
for now we
it
don't
is
have
not.
that.
So I can tell you that serialization is not available. So how you do it, that is kind of unknown part. That's why it is unknown part.
So
Yeah.
So one is that you said that the components that we are designing, they are actually basically access now. And when they are going to render it, it's one network cost are going to be
Correct.
for that component.
Correct.
And the general rule of thumb for any page control is that there should be a less number of network costs. So it means on one page, if I had 20 components, there will be 20 network costs are
That
going
is
to be
correct.
there.
That is correct. But the thing is, the rule of thumb is your first time to load, time to byte should be less, right? Of course, there is a rule saying you should have less requests because of the turnaround time is bigger. But in this case, they are so fast that even if there are more pages, as you see, this page is also statically generated on Azure Blob as well with dynamic components. But having said that, it does what it does. So there is request for whatever the components that you put. That is the hard truth.
Second question is, if we are designing the component, so somewhere we need more specific control on that. So is there any way where I can switch from design to HTML and HTML to design?
You mean the navigation, like proper navigation?
So let's suppose I have this component,
Mhm.
component, and I want the HTML object component so that I can add something there.
Yeah, I got your point. No, there is no facility like that.
But they are providing that granular control on the GraphQL and API, but not on the HTML level.
But that's what it is. If you want to create HTML, then you use your programming, right? This is for low code, no code.
Yeah, that I understand. But I'm saying they are providing the various type of options for data source.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
But they are not providing these options for the HTML. Somewhere we need the customization on the granular where we are not getting that functionality on the no code or low code component.
That is true. But I believe that this is designed, maybe it won't be in future as well, because this is specially designed to do something very fast. You drag and drop things and create something out of it. There, you will always have limitations there. If you want customization, then the head app cycle will repeat. You have your React app, you create something there, and then you do it. That is true.
Yep,
That is true.
I
But
was
we
going
had
to
the
say the
same
same
question.
thing, like the questions are
Exactly.
going to go to
When
site
you asked,
also.
we figured that we had the same question. Why it is like.
so is there is any option to add the bootstrap styles?
Yeah. Right.
Any option to add the bootstrap styles instead of creating a styles by own? It look like it would take much time, right? While creating styles, I have already a bootstrap style CSS class. Whether I can able to apply those classes over here?
No, currently it is not supported.
Okay.
But yeah, if you read the documentation, I think they are working on a lot of things. This same question, like there was another question saying, can we have the Figma design support where I can, inspect the Figma and do some stuff here? Then it will make sense for me. So they are all the things are on the roadmap. These are the basic needs. I think every developer will have Bootstrap, world-class standard. We need that. Currently, it is not supported.
Also, we are applying this data source at the component level, right? So while
Correct.
assembling the pages, is it possible to apply the data source for this component? Because I might have a hundreds of article pages, right? So the data source content might be differ over there. Is there is any possibility to apply the data source at the page level while dragging dropping this component?
There is no facility.
No, it has to be applied on
Because the
component.
same component can't be reused in another pages, right?
Correct. No, same component can be used in another
But the
page.
content will be again the content author has to make that
Correct, correct. That's
more like kind of an, if I going to have 1,000 pages going to
Yeah.
use the same
Yeah,
component.
that's a traditional Sitecore thinking that we have. So I think, yeah, they are designed to do some different purpose. But what happens is that we think in the same Sitecore pattern of reusability, But your question is right. But I think the application is not doing that because it has some different purpose. But yeah, it is not there.
Probably we need to
Correct.
ask
Yeah,
Sitecore
that's a
on
good
this.
question. I think that whole question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, we are available on the booth here. We can meet in the lunch as well. So I think we can conclude it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.